Hi, I'm Amy Hannon, and nothing thrills me more than people and food. I'm a preacher's wife, a mom of 3, and I own my own specialty kitchen store. I've kept an open door and a well-stocked fridge, which means I have fed a lot of mouths over the years. So welcome to my kitchen. This is Cooking Today. Hi, welcome to Cooking Today. I'm glad you're here with me today. We are making a one-dish meal. Aren't those the best? Just a little bit of cleanup, not much to go on. Really easy skillet pork chops with a beautiful salty, crusty sear. And then we're going to do these delicious caramelized onions down in that skillet as well. And then all of it's going to bake down into this amazing cream sauce. It's got a little tiny bit of mustard, lots of salt and pepper, a little bit of bourbon. I said bourbon. It's good, just a tiny bit, just enough to give it a little flavor. You're not even going to know what it is that you're tasting, but it's good stuff. And so what we want to do is kind of get going. There's not a lot of work to do, but there's plenty, and we want to just kind of, once you kind of get ready to roll on this dish, you need to kind of work quickly, if that makes sense. You know, sometimes you can kind of take your time and call people or watch the news or whatever, but this is when you really want to kind of have everything ready to go, because once it gets going, you're going to need to push on through. So what I have right here are 3, probably 6 or 8 ounce pork chops that are cut about 1 1/4 inch thick, and I chose bone in because there is so much flavor in those bones. We've talked about that before. You can also do that really pretty one that's a little bit Frenchy with the little bone that comes out the top. Looks like fancy restaurant. You can have those cut, or you can cut those yourself, but I just got these because they are quick and easy. And these are so good. This is the important part. We're getting a good crust on the outside. So we have a really good dose of salt, a little bit of pepper. We're gonna rub this all around on the outsides of these chops. And I have a cast iron skillet. It's a 12-inch cast iron skillet, preheating on the stove. And what's really important, y'all, is that you have size in your skillet, because we're going to put all 3 of these in there. So you really do need to own a good 12-inch skillet for something like this. And it needs to be oven safe. And so there are lots of skillets that we own that are really only good for the stove. So you might have the size, but it needs to be able to go straight into the oven. And you just can't beat cast iron. You know how I feel about that. If you've got one in your family, get your name on it, because you're going to want it. Okay, so I'm salt and peppering both of these on the side. I've kept my dirty hand dirty and my clean hand clean. Okay, and then my dirty hand, we're going to go ahead and just press this around. Make sure that there's a little bit of that seasoning on every bit of the pork. Okay, and then what we want to do, we've got this oven, or this skillet, preheating over medium-high. And this is going to sear up, and it's going to smoke like crazy. And I actually even have my apron on, because it can, you know, spit just the tiniest bit of juice and a little bit of oil and stuff like that. So you want to be sure that you're covered. And this will be one where you're going to have to wipe your sink down. But listen, it is good stuff. So we have our skillet preheated. We have our chops. And what we want to do is put these in this skillet, and you don't want to move them. Go ahead and set them in there. Right away, you're going to have to kind of figure out how they're going to fit. It's almost like a puzzle, so that you're sure that they all fit in there. All the surfaces are laying down on your hot skillet, and then let them rest there for a little bit. They're going to sizzle and do all kinds of good things, and then we're going to turn them over after they cook for just a couple of minutes on each side. Now, we've done steaks before, and what we've done with those is we've only turned them once. We got a good dark sear and a good dark sear, and then we finished them in the oven. But these pork chops, we are actually going to turn these a couple of times, and each time we turn them, they're going to get a little bit more golden, a little bit more golden, a little bit more golden, and they're going to be unbelievable, that crust that gets on the outside. So good. So we're going to let these get going. So here is my skillet. It is hot. I'm going to do the tiniest drizzle of olive oil, y'all, not much, because we don't want it to fry them. But we do want it to have a little hot. Can you see? Okay. And so we're going to set these down inside that hot, hot, hot skillet. Oh, yes. That sound good? That is the sound of good supper right there. Okay. And then I'm going to turn this third one. See how I said it's like a puzzle? There we go. See, you kind of have to figure out how they're going to lay. And we're just going to let those go. We're going to let them go for a couple of minutes on each side, and we're just going to check them from time to time. It kind of depends on my pork chops, and it kind of depends on my skillet. It kind of depends on how much time I have, to be honest. But sometimes I've flipped them just twice. Sometimes I've flipped them 3 times. It's just really up to you. So while those cook, what we want to do here is take an onion, just a medium onion that we've quartered, peeled and quartered. And then what I like to do with these is, take them apart in about halves, just so that you don't have one big, huge chunk like this, one whole quarter. We're just kind of separating these into 2 sections because we're going to sear these in our skillet as well with some shallots. And then we're going to throw some mushrooms in there. Oh, y'all, you're going to love this. So I'm going to separate these and keep flipping our pork chops. This is Cooking Today.
Cooking Today, sponsored by West Rock Coffee Company.
Hi, welcome back. I have got the most wonderful sizzle going on in the kitchen right now. We are starting a beautiful sear on our skillet pork chops. This is our 1-dish meal. It starts on the stove, finishes in the oven, and that is it. It is beautiful when it comes out. Wait till you see it and smell it. I mean, this right here, meat cooking is just so good, isn't it? So what I've done, we've given this a really good crust on the outside with lots of salt and pepper, and then we put a little bit of oil in our skillet. And so I have turned these just a couple of times. See those good dark brown pieces? See that golden right there? Ooh, that's a good one. So we have seared these on the outside. These are not cooked through. They're going to finish cooking in the oven. So we do not have to worry about that right now. And I just have a little staging area right here where we're going to actually just kind of let those sit. And in this same skillet, I have actually quartered my onion, and I've peeled a few shallots and just cut them in half. I like using the 2 different kinds of onions for a little different flavor. These shallots are so sweet once they get kind of caramelized. They're so good. And that purple is just pretty. And so I'm always a fan of kind of mixing in varieties for a different bite, a different flavor, a little different texture. And so these are our onions that we're going to put in this skillet. Okay? And I'm going to lay them down, some of them on their flat sides, some of them on their backs. So in this same skillet, with all those brown bits on the bottom, we are putting our onions and our shallots. And we're going to actually let those char pretty well on that skillet. Automatically, y'all, the smell that those onions give off, it smells like the grill, almost like when you're making, like a kebab. Those onions on the edges get crispy and so good. Those are the ones I always eat first. So delicious. So we're going to let these do their thing for just a minute or so on each side. We're going to kind of toss them in a minute, but we're just going to let them cook. And then I just have a small container of portobello mushrooms, baby portobellos. And I am going to just cut them in half. These come sliced, but for some reason I kind of like them a little bit heartier. Not as big as a whole, so that's why we've decided that we really like these halved. And with mushrooms, you don't rinse them. You actually just wipe them off with a paper towel. They have a little bit of dirt on the outside that's really, really easy just to remove with the paper towel. But you don't want to wash them because they're spongy, and they can actually absorb the water. We don't want that. We want them to be nice and dry like this. So we have these good, meaty halves that are so delicious in this cream sauce at the end. We are a fan of mushrooms. We really love them with meat, and they're a really inexpensive side item. They're really good. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of check on these. And once they kind of lay still a minute, oh goodness, let me see if I can flip one of those over. Look how pretty. These are getting, see that little bit of color? Ooh, that's a good one. Ooh, that's a good one too. So we're just going to let these kind of sit on these hot sides. See those corners that I was telling you about, kind of like a kebab? We're just going to let these keep getting hot over here. Our meat is over here sitting at the side waiting. And in just a second, we're going to actually put every bit of this in. Oh, look at that one. I've said that about all of them, haven't I? Because they're so good. That color that we're getting. So what we're going to do is deglaze our pan in just a few minutes with our sauce. And what our sauce is going to be is 2 cups of chicken stock. If you have homemade, use homemade. I've taught you how. I wish I had a freezer full of it. Ooh, that's kind of glopping. I need to slow down. I wish I had a freezer full because there's nothing like it, right? So we're going to add our chicken stock in just a minute, but let's check on these onions really quick. Oh, look, they're moving around. They are cooking, cooking, cooking. I'm just going to give it a stir with my wooden spoon. Oh, that color, yum. I've already got my eye on the ones that I want to eat when it's time. Okay, so you can let those get some color, and then what we want to do is remove these from the skillet and set them over here with our pork that we've actually already pulled off, okay? And if you want more color than that, you can let those go a little longer. That's really up to you. These are going to continue to cook like crazy in the oven because we're going to put these in a 450-degree oven. And they will continue to cook through, but we want those charred bites for sure. I'm going to continue to scoop those out. They are hot. Watch your way on this skillet. I'm afraid I'm going to get burned right there. Okay, so we've cleaned it out. We have our little resting place, and we have our chicken stock. And so what we want to do is start to deglaze that pan, and we're going to add in a little bit of cream, a little bite of a Dijon mustard that's kind of a yummy surprise in there. It's a great flavor that you're really going to love, and a tiny splash of bourbon. So we're going to deglaze our pan and put it all together. Wait till you see how pretty this is in just a minute. This is cooking today.
Iced tea, sponsored by Lipton.
Hi, we're making beautiful skillet pork chops today, a 1-dish meal. Aren't those the best? And it is beautiful. When this whole thing comes out served, it is just, it's like you're in a great restaurant and you made it yourself. You're going to need to try this. Serve this with little mashed potatoes on the side, this pan sauce. Heaven, y'all, heaven. Okay, we've seared our pork chops, taken them out. We've gotten a good little char on a couple of onions and some shallots, and it's smelling good. We've turned our pan down to about medium because I'm telling you, these cast iron skillets, they get hot and they hold heat for a long time. So you don't have to worry. I've just turned it down off of that extra high. Okay, and are you ready for this? We're gonna steam up, so y'all get ready. We're gonna carefully pour in our chicken stock. And see all that action going on in the pan right there? What that is it's actually deglazing the pan. You've probably heard about this kind of thing before, but it is cooking all those good bits off of the bottom of the pan that the pork and the onions and all of that have left behind. So we want to let that simmer for just a minute or so. I'm on about medium heat, and our oven is preheating to 450. It's really high, but it's going to just, it's going to simmer this sauce all over the pork chops and finish getting those cooked through. So good. Okay, so did you see how it kind of did the work? Did you see how it was like really anxious to get in there, and it like cooked and cooked and cooked, and you could see how it was cooking all the bits off? We've kind of settled down a little bit now. So this is the time where you can actually add in some cream. So I'm going to let that just kind of softly simmer right there. And I'm going to do about a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. You could use 1/2 and 1/2 if you would rather. It's so good what this cream does to that salty broth. Okay, so I'm going to carefully and quickly whisk, whisk, whisk when I'm making my sauce. I'm going to go ahead and get that out. Oh, look at that dark. Do you see those dark pieces? That is flavor in there that's left over from our from all that stuff that we cooked in there earlier, the pork and the onions. And so then the chicken stock did its job and loosened all of that up for us so that now it becomes part of our sauce. Okay, so all we want to do here, this is super easy. Just a couple of tablespoons of Dijon mustard. You could also use a dried powdered mustard if you would rather. This is also a little bit of your acquired taste. So if you want a lot, use a lot. If you want a little, use a little. I just use a couple of tablespoons. Not too much, but enough that you can really, taste that little bit of flavor. Kind of stings your nose a little bit, that good Dijon mustard. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and let's whisk this in and add a little salt. A little bit of salt, probably about a teaspoon or so, half a teaspoon. Lots of pepper. The pepper is so good. Okay, and get this whisked up really well. And then right here at the very end, we don't want it to cook too long. So right at the very end, we're just going to add a little splash of bourbon. You can absolutely omit that if you don't want it or if you don't have it. But there is a flavor that gives this cream sauce that is just really like no other. And I mean, y'all, I'm talking about, look, not even a swig. It's just tiny, tiny, tiny. But it sure does make a difference, that little bitty bit. Okay, so I'm letting that cook a minute. We're going to let it simmer, simmer, simmer. Our stove is getting there. And so what we want to do, oh yeah, look at that good simmer. Okay, so we have our pan of vegetables, right? And our beautiful pork chops. So what we want to do here is basically just set it all back in there. Isn't that easy? Easy, easy, easy. So we will put our pork in there. Right there. Pretty. Remember how you got to kind of fit them in. We've got that pretty brown on there, that good flavor. We've got these bone in, because again, that's where the flavor is. And then these onions and shallots, I'm just nestling down inside and tucking them into all these little holes. Wherever we can find a place. We want them down in the liquid so that the liquid will actually do its trick and, cook them, because we really just seared the outside. We weren't able to cook them through, so we wanted them to get nice and tender down inside that liquid. Isn't that turning out to be so pretty? Aren't we glad we used a couple of different colors of onions for that reason right there? Okay, and lastly, we are just going to tuck in these halved mushrooms. Oh, perfect timing. Perfect timing. Our oven is ready. That is beautiful. I'm going to turn that heat off now because we are done kneading our stove. And then you just use as many of these mushrooms as you can fit. You want to get them tucked. They do not have to be submerged because they're actually going to cook through. And when we're done with this, we're going to top it with beautiful sprigs of fresh thyme, stick it in the oven for 12 minutes, and it is a done deal. Beautiful supper on the table. This is Cooking Today. We are wrapping up the most delicious one skillet meal of beautiful seared pork chops with shallots that we've caramelized and a beautiful cream sauce that's got a little bourbon, a little bit of mushroom, all kinds of good things, a little bit of mustard. And what we did right before we went to break is we put these in a 450-degree oven and we let that cook for about 12 minutes or so. And you want to check to be sure that the internal temperature of these pork chops are 150. And then we want to let this sit. So we've actually allowed this to sit for just a few minutes, and that internal temperature will get up close to 160 and you are good to go. Don't overcook a pork chop. That's one of the biggest tragedies of all, if you ask me, because they are so tender and they can get real tough, but in this sauce, there is nothing like it, y'all. It smells so good. So what we've done before we put it in the oven, we did pick off a few of the thyme leaves and put them down in the sauce, and then after we've cooked it, this thyme has gotten crispy. You are welcome to leave those on there. I'm going to take them off and then plate one of these and put some pretty fresh thyme right on top. So I have 3 utensils to plate this pretty dish. I have my tongs. Oh my goodness. Then I'm just going to plate that pork chop right in the middle. And then I have my slotted spoon to get out these good veggies. Remember that pretty color we got on those onions? Well, now they have cooked all the way through. Oh my goodness. And those mushrooms, part of them were in the sauce, part of them were out of the sauce. They've gotten kind of brownish and kind of roasted. Oh, look at that one. There's that onion that I said I love with that good little bit. Let's get a shallot if we can find one. Here's a good one. Oh yes. That is one of my faves. Right there on the top. And then we just want to get a good ladle of this pan sauce. Bourbon and cream, a little bit of mustard. Y'all, if you have a little dollop of mashed potatoes beside that, a good piece of bread, you are going to just love, love, love your meal. Top this with a little fresh thyme. It is beautiful and delicious. 1 skillet meals. Pretty nice, huh? This is Cooking Today.
Cooking Today, sponsored by West Rock Coffee Company. Kitchenware is provided by Una Mays. Groceries provided by Harps, Hometown Fresh.